chairs that are in the audience already, and there's other chairs over here, please help yourself. And if need be, we can move these tables back a little bit. Thank you. I'll give you about 5 minutes to sort away. We'll start this meeting a little bit later.
Where's the other? There are 4 chairs in here. I already pulled them out of there. I know, I was like, wait a minute. I'm not looking for
Okay, so look, I have, 1 second, I want to tell them how many people we have. I don't want to see your screen.
Well,
97.
almost 10 after, I'd like to call the
Thank
meeting to order. Again, I'm looking at the fire marshal because at some point he may pull a plug and we're moving across the street. Tonight, basically, those of us who've been around for a while, the three boards meet, and it's kind of funny because we look at each other and nobody's here. So tonight, we have quite the audience, so thank you for coming, and thank you for your interest. One of the things I'd like to do, I'm gonna defer to, the Board of Education first and, have them speak. If we do not move and we can stay here according to the fire marshal, those of you that are gonna speak or ask questions, I ask you to come up to this podium, use the microphone that's there. Anybody that speaks, including folks on the three boards, please state your name, for the record, if you will, and also that we know who is speaking. So, without further ado, Hans, I'm gonna hand this to Hans Frankenhaber, who is the.
Hello, my name is Hans Blankenhauer, and I'm the chair of the Woodstock Board of Ed, and I appreciate the opportunity to address you guys, to show the challenges that we're gonna be, facing this upcoming year. And I'm sure everybody's feeling, the economy and a lot of other, outside elements that are causing problems for budgetary reasons and stuff like that. And, Victor, has a presentation here to explain our background and some of the things that we're going to face in this coming year.
Oh, yes, are you in the meeting?
And for all of those that
Okay,
might not
you
know,
should
that
be
Victor
able to see
Sosa
the
is the
screen.
superintendent of the Woodstock School System.
What I'd like to do is give you, a little bit of a background and a perspective from the Woodstock Board of Education and the current, financial situation concerning the Woodstock Board of Education, our arrangement with tuition for Woodstock Academy and other institutions, and then the limitations that we're facing here in Woodstock. So the first thing I wanted to start with you is, there is, and hopefully you can see it, that's one, yeah. There is a Connecticut General Statute, 10-34, that says, any town in which a high school is not maintained shall pay the whole of the tuition fees of pupils attending such schools or academies. So that essentially is a statute for the state of Connecticut that says, if you have an endowed academy, in our case, it's either Woodstock Academy, Norwich Free Academy, or the Gilbert Academy, which is a much smaller academy, the tuition that they set is what you as a town are obligated and entitled to pay. And that tuition cannot be cut or modified, it has to be absorbed within the budget of the town of Woodstock. This financial arrangement is probably one of it's the only time in the state of Connecticut, definitely, and it's one of the few, if not the only arrangement of such in the entire country. So it puts tremendous limitations on both the municipal and the education budget. And in my opinion, I'm sure most of your opinions, providing for our youngest students and maintaining public safety are probably the two most important responsibilities of any community. Woodstock is given rankings according to the State Department of Education and the state of Connecticut. Woodstock is ranked out of 169 towns, 87 in median household income, 147 out of 169 towns equalized mill rate, and 164th out of 169 towns in per pupil expenditure. Those first two numbers, the 87, which means you're in the upper bracket of the state as far as income, and 147 is what we are paying as a community, will result in the town of Woodstock losing $901,000 in state funding based on ability to pay over the years 2030. And this coming budget year, we're scheduled to lose $128,000 based on ability to pay. And that reduction can only come from the pre-K to 8 budget. Remember statute 10-34, we cannot alter the tuition from the endowed academy. We are part of Windham County, and this is just a quick overview of what the ability to pay is used for by the state of Connecticut. It's used in our calculation of our state education aid. It's used when we go to bargaining with our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our custodians. It's our ability to pay that the state and the arbiters look at. And if you look here in Windham County, we are ranked as in second in per capita income. You can see where we are ranked. We are also ranked fourth in median household income. Adjusted equalized net grand list. You can see that we are at the very top of our county. We are adjusted equalized net grand list per capita. We are the top of the county as far as ability. And as far as adjusted equalized net grand list per capita rank, we are ranked first in the county. And one more slide, adjusted equalized net grand list per capita. And then this slide also shows you where we rank in median house sales, and this is a 4-year-old data, so I'm sure it's changed. But these are the important ones to take a look at. Equalized mill rate. So we just looked at our ability to pay, what we are paying as far as mill rate. We are right down at the bottom. What we are net current expenditures per pupil. We are at the bottom of the county, in Windham County. And also net current expenditures, education expenditures per pupil. That's what the town spends for the schools. Again, we are at the bottom. So this chart will show you once again that we are scheduled to lose by the year 2030, $901,000 state aid based on our ability to pay. Tuition, this is 2020 data, pre-K to 8 for Woodstock is $15,620 per student. Tuition that we pay out to Woodstock County and other institutions, $19,441, and the state average is $17,878. So you can see the discrepancy between how we are, because of statute, funding our difference between high school and elementary school. And this chart will also show you what the average cost of a medium-sized high school is, $19,121, based on the 2020 statistics from the state. A mid-sized elementary school is $18,607, and a mid-sized middle school is $18,136. You can go back, you can take a look at so there's quite a discrepancy based on what we are funding. So the reality of the current upcoming budget is we have $490,000 increase in contractual obligations. So that's based on what we have negotiated, based on what the state determines our ability to pay. These are your teachers, your paraprofessionals, your custodians, your administrative assistants in the offices. Just those increases by themselves are $490,000. We, of course, you're all feeling this, $66,000 for next year that we are anticipating an increase in heating oil. $63,000 in transportation, mostly due to fuel costs. And don't forget that $128,000 loss in education funding. So those educational obligations come to $747,000 just to keep the status quo. Woodstock Academy, as they should, plans for an increase of 5%. Because remember, they're not just responsible to Woodstock, they're also responsible to Concord, Brooklyn, Eastburg, Canterbury, Union. That will result in a per pupil expenditure of $18,845 that we pay to Woodstock Academy. By statutes, any reductions that the Board of Finance is required to make because of their ordinance will all come from town budget and the education budget. The town probably already has their estimated allowable increase under the ordinance, so I'm sure that this figure is already in excess of that allowable. Impacts on the school over the last few years, since 2012, we reduced by 14 classroom teachers, 13 regular education paraprofessionals, a middle school librarian, an elementary school librarian, your elementary school computer program, your middle school 7th grade Spanish program, elementary school gifted program, middle school gifted program. We also had coordinators that would coordinate the curriculum delivery between kindergarten and 8th grade for language arts, math, and technology. And we also have pay-to-play sports, which comes out to about $250 per student per sport. Our education budget is also unable to really fund capital expenditures. Our buildings, our systems require regular maintenance, public address systems, heating and cooling systems, structural maintenance, keeping our buildings upright. Our budgetary limitations right now do not allow us to put these items into our operating budget because we always put them off because they don't directly impact our students. So oftentimes we have to be waiting till something fails until we address it and request emergency funding. And at this point, we can't even look at what it would cost to enhance our campus safety. We are very fortunate that Woodstock Academy is sharing their campus security part-time with Woodstock Middle School, so we do get some funding, which is greatly appreciated and is really just comforting for our staff and students. So the conclusion here is nearly 1/3 of our budget is controlled by your high school costs. They're not bad costs, they're good costs, they're an investment in our future. But you have no control over those costs, not because your high school is out of control, just the way the law is written. The brunt of all budget limitations is absorbed by the pre-K to 8 schools and the municipal budget. And as a result, there's no room to maintain or improve our service. We're just basically fine if we went ahead with that $747,000 increase, just to keep what we have. That's not to add back sports, that's not to add back librarians, that's not to add back gifted programs. This is just what we want to keep. And right now, you don't have the ability to approve or decline a regional budget request, because that will be determined for you ahead. So I just wanted to give you the perspective of where the Woodstock Public Schools stand in terms of the finances of Woodstock. We have wonderful schools, we have wonderful teachers. When you walk into our buildings, they are safe. There's a lot of learning going on, but sometimes that masks some of the difficulties that we face. If we want to buy a new textbook program, online or hard copy, those are usually $50, $60, $70,000. We put those expenses off for language arts, English, math, social studies. We always defer those. We don't want to directly impact the student, but that takes away from our stuff program. So it is a real juggling act that your teachers, your administrators, your paraprofessionals go through every day, and we take it very seriously. Sometimes there's a break. With the cost of fuel, last year we did have to go back to the Board of Finance and request an additional appropriation because our budget could not absorb the additional fuel cost. We've already let the Board of Finance know that that's probably going to happen. And for that is my presentation. I will hand it over to Hans if you want to say anything else.
I just also, we also saw a decrease in scores nationwide during the pandemic, and our budget, doesn't even address what steps are going to be taken to even get that up to a par. So if you look at kind of what has been going on for the past 10 years, you can see the programs that have been lost. We've been for the past 10 years, strategically working on budgets and making them work, but as time has gone on, we've gradually lost and lost and lost. We've never been able to actually kind of increase or build back into the structure that we once had 10, 15 years ago. So right now with the situation that we're trying to battle, even after COVID and stuff, we're already behind to catch up with the situation. And that's why, this meeting tonight is very important. This is also to not have the doom and gloom, but also to get some feedback from you guys to see if you have any ideas. The brainstorming concept that we have to go through to try to creatively come up with a budget is huge, and everybody's going to need to be involved and try to figure this out. So who would like to talk next?
So the people on Zoom are requesting that you speak louder. So please speak loudly, speak slowly.
Okay. No, well. All right, I'm Jason Warren. For those of you that don't know, I just want to mention that the taxes that you pay, 80% goes to the school, 20% goes to general government. And out of general government is things like your roads, your transfer station, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there is a state law, and I've been living this weekend. It started Friday night when I got a phone call from the media, if you will. And there was a report Friday night, 11 o'clock news on a local channel, but it was talking about EMS services. And our EMS staff have diligently, since November, have been trying to get 24/7 coverage. I personally have been working with various towns, Pomfret, because Pomfret has KB ambulance. They have a unit and a crew there that serves Pomfret and Hampton and Chaplain. And I was talking to folks over there. Is that something we want to get involved with? As many of you know, Thompson had a situation a couple of years ago where their staff resigned. Now, as I said, there's a state law. Towns must fund emergency medical services. So because of the situation in Thompson, they've aligned, and there's a group that, it's the Thompson Putnam. And it's a collaborative. I've been going to their monthly meetings, talking to them. They're still going through growing pains, and it's not ready to get involved with Woodstock. So we've been talking to our home team, if you will, in Woodstock, and those folks have been diligent about trying to get 24/7 coverage, and they've been doing that. And not to pick on anybody, but if Russ Downer is in the room, Russ, I'll have you come up if you would, or if you want to grab that mic right there and just give a background on what you and your staff are doing, the coverage we're getting. And again, this is required by state law. And Russ and Eric and others have been diligent in trying to get this squared away. Because everybody in this room, you call 911, you want someone to show up. And we have had problems in the past with coverage. And we've had to, rely on mutual aid, this sort of thing. So Russ, if you could give a little background on why we're at where we are, because we don't have the volunteers, and how things are going so far, and what you project for the next 6 months or a year. So,
Thanks, I appreciate everyone coming. It's nice to see so many people here for education and human service. So like Jay said, we've been approaching the selectmen over the past 3 or 4 years, I think now, letting them know that the volunteer services at an all-time low. And it's only because everyone's trying to chase the dollar. So our EMS staff are going from KB, Putnam, the community, back to Woodstock. Most of these people who are dedicated to what they do don't get any kind of healthcare for chasing the dollar right now. At one point, when I started as an EMT back in Putnam, I used to get $1 a phone. Fast forward to 2021, 2022, we need to upgrade and get our services better aligned with what's going on in what we need. We were at $17.25. Now it's partially paid, partially volunteer service. We saw an immediate need, with time being strung out a little bit longer for us to go. We all know in EMS and fire service that there's always a golden hour, it's like 7 minutes, especially for, heart attacks or whatnot. Some of our calls were extended out to 20 minutes. That's from the time that the dispatch to the time we arrived on scene. That's unacceptable for us. We worked diligently with the selectmen, the board of finance, and we came up with a couple of different numbers. And we increased our staffing. We went 24/7 on December 3rd. All right, since December 3rd, we have not missed a third call. And that's because we've upped the pay scale for these guys. Our EMTs at MR are very, very dedicated to what they do. We're just coming out of COVID the past few years. When we go transport and pick up those in our need, there were certain parameters in which we could charge and couldn't charge for services during COVID. So like the school system and everybody else, we're taking hits at no fault of our own. But we're starting to go into our fund balances to try and make this work. We offered to try this in January. The selectmen negotiated, and we were able to diligently start this in December. Since December, we've onboarded. Chief, why don't you come up here and help me? Chief Eric Young, we're tag teaming this. Since December, we've had 10 new hires, and we're onboarding more staff members. I've never seen anything happen so fast in a positive manner than what we were able to do in less than a month and a half. Onboarding people also means that these are EMTs and EMRs that come in, they already have their licenses. However, they need to be trained, they need to know the roads of Woodstock, what's going on with ambulances and whatnot. So, I appreciate everyone that, is on the board that's doing our EMS and, they're doing a great job for Buckland.
All right, so Chief Eric Young, I'm chief of the Hill Department right next to the elementary school. Little backstory, we were paying under everybody else. We missed last year 62 no crew on the first dispatch. 62 equated to 10%. The state only allows 20% and your license is taken away. So we've been knocking on the door saying, all right, paid staff is gonna have to happen here at some point, and that's been 3 years, 4 years. So we ended up borrowing against our own money that we've already received. We had a fund where we started saving up for a new ambulance. And it just so happened that that money would be able to carry us over to the next budget year. So we increased everybody's pay, we went 24/7. Thinking with my admin, he said, hey, I got 6 guys for you that will jump on the crew if we do this tomorrow. Thinking 6, that means 3. We put the ads out, we are now currently employing 24 EMTs, 7 EMRs. So that's 10 new EMTs, 3 new EMRs. And like he said, we have not missed a first duty call so far since this went live. And up to tonight, when I left the station, we are covered from now through February, except for 42 hours already, the schedule's filled. The guys, the admin, the EMTs that have been doing this for years, I thank every one of them. They put up with a lot of disgruntled people. When we don't show up, or, you know, we all know your loved one's sick and the rig doesn't show up and we gotta rely on mutual aid. It's unfair to them because now they show up 20 minutes, 40 minutes. It's a long time. So we went live with this December 3rd and it's worked very well. We've proposed so far an increase of $262,614. This increase would only go towards our payroll. The rest, that is all the billing income that we get, would go to ambulance replacement. It would go through oxygen, fuel, all the same expenses everybody's seeing rise. It's just a matter of fact that we have to go to 24/7. We're missing too many calls. There was in the year 2022, we recorded, because we knew this was an issue, how many times an EMT was needed to fill a crew, how many times EMR was needed to fill a crew. An EMT was needed 1,650 hours in the year 2022, and an EMR was needed 1,509 hours in the year 2022. So the 62 times we didn't get a crew out on the first call, we're lucky. We're lucky that more calls didn't come through when we weren't staffed. Thankfully, that's not our issue right now. Our issue is now the dollar figure.
So the increase would equal $477,854 that we're asking for the town, if the town takes our proposal. In their due diligence, I think Jay has sat down with other agencies like SKV, Putnam, and I believe, I don't know if they're in negotiations or if they've gotten a price. Those stats are for personnel only. It's about another $190,000 that we would take out of our billing agency for oxygen supply, onboarding new staff, training, banding. Oxygen alone last month was $654. Our fuel bill last month to run our ambulances was almost $700. We did 753 calls, I think, in 2021, and we just finished the year with 652 calls for the town of Woodstock just this year in 2022. When I first started, we were lucky to have 100 calls, and I was complete 100% volunteer service. And these are just first, the EMRs and EMTs that we're having right now, that's the first ambulance. We have 2 ambulances in the town of Woodstock. If that ambulance goes out, and God forbid they have to go to UMass, people actually first duty ambulance for 3 hours. When we do callbacks now, we still want such thing as a volunteer. By the Federal Labor Standards Act, they're now getting callback hours. So we no longer have a 2 volunteer as far as EMTs, EMRs. All right, these guys have chosen to do the right thing, and they are now 2 employees. So we've lost on one end, but we've gained on another. So it's some of the factors, and it's regional. We're not trying to lose an animal, we're trying to keep one animal. Any?
I'm gonna follow up. Thanks. The other thing, looking at the other ambulances, you may also know that Dave Kimball was, aligned with AMR. And they had negotiations going back to November. And out of the negotiations came that AMR would no longer provide service to Dave Kimball. So Dave Kimball aligned with KB Ambulance. Well, that's all well and good, but it means that it's not somebody we could look to, much like Proctor did. And the other part of that is that, KB is gonna, just because of Dave Kimball Hospital, is gonna have to purchase 2 new rigs, 2 new ambulances, and 12 staff to staff what the needs of Dave Kimball are. And again, I go back to how I started this conversation. We are required by law to provide emergency medical service. Now, the other thing, those of you that may have complained that you stopped by to get a fishing license or a transfer station permit on a Friday, oh yeah, town hall's closed on Friday. I didn't do that, but 3 years ago, it closed on Friday. People still haven't made, because there are those of us that are there on Friday and you get the knock at the door, ma'am, I'm sorry, we're closed, but why are you here? Well, because I don't have a life. But people come in and try to do business on Friday, and we have to remind them we're closed on Friday. That was an effort to save money to the taxpayer. We have many offices that are part-time at the town hall. We try to provide full services to all taxpayers and all citizens in town. Many times, we can only find people with the right certification, training, experience. It can only work part-time. Unfortunately, we've also found many of those people are looking for full-time. And if they can't find it with us, they'll be with us for a year or so, and all of a sudden they take a position elsewhere. So it's difficult for us to hold on to qualified people in the town hall to meet your needs. So these are all of the things that we have to deal with. I am going to defer to the finance director, Karen Fitzpatrick, to go over some of the basics of income, expenses, and what we deal with. And I want you to remember, 80% of the taxes you pay go for the school. And I have, gentlemen and ladies, I have nothing against the school. I'm a graduate of the school, but only 20% stays with the town. So, anyway.
Only me.
Good evening, everybody. I guess I have to go to the podium.
Well, if you stand, I think
I
the
I
audio.
guess I have a lot of material, so can everybody like hear me on,
Let me check. Karen, can you keep talking?
okay. So I'm just gonna start off by saying my job is to find a way to pay for it. And it's not a very easy thing to do when, you have very limited revenue coming into the town. I've been working for the town of Woodstock for 17 years. And it started as a part-time recreation director. Some of you may know me as Miss Karen. Your kids came to my CASA program. And we've been struggling with budgets for the 17 years that I've been. Every year, it's not enough money. We don't have, ways to fund more programs for recreation or for the town beach or different things like that. So we keep having to try to find more revenue or more cuts. And unfortunately, we can't find any more revenue, and it's just gonna keep coming down to more cuts. This, proposal from EMS is probably about between $260,000 and $280,000 increase. We currently give them about $215,000 now, and that's for part-time service. There's also laws out there that protect them because they can't volunteer and get paid. It's one or the other. So if people are working and we have to pay them, they can no longer volunteer as well. So that's another problem that EMS is facing, because some people still do want to volunteer, but we cannot do that. We can't do it at the town hall either. We have to pay for every minute of service that is provided. So that's one big struggle. The next big struggle is being able to afford a lot of our infrastructure programs. We're finding that, we don't have the money to maintain the schools or to maintain the town hall buildings. These things cost money. And we have an account called CNR, which is capital non-recurring, and each year, if there is a surplus in our budget, we try to put money aside to be able to save each year to be able to do a program. Well, what happens is it's one price today, but by the time we save up 5 years, it's 5 times as expensive. So these are some of the problems we are facing this year alone in fiscal year 24 budget. The town has about a $600,000 increase just in debt and EMS services. We don't know where that's coming from because we also have a limit of spending due to Prop 46. I had left copies in the back for people. You may have a copy of that. Proposition 46 limits our spending based on the grand list growth. So last year, during a reval year, we had a lot of growth. We had to reduce the mill rate. Some of you I know still saw an increase in your taxes. I think we all felt that. That's because the market was very high. Our homes were worth more. But as time goes on, that may change. We have another reval in 4 years, I think it's 2025. It's usually 5 years, but it's gonna be 4 years because the state mandated it to change for that 1 year. But the real reason we're all here basically is because we have to find a way to provide the services that everybody depends on. Or we're gonna have to make some severe cuts, and we wanna know what's important to you. Is it EMS service? Is it the schools? Is it your roads? Because we're facing problems even with being able to maintain our roads. At 7 o'clock this evening, when this opens up to a public forum, we will have our highway department director, John Navarro, here to answer any questions about transfer station, highway department. Right now, we're facing the need to replace a 2005 dump truck at a cost of $242,000. We have to take loans out, we have interest, we have payments that have to be made. We have contractual services, we have Teamsters, we have AFSCME members, we have contracted obligations to the state of Connecticut. So all of these things each year that keep coming, we have to keep trying to pay Peter or beg from Peter to pay Paul, if you really want to know how to say that, but the problem is we just have to keep looking at our budget and figure out what we're gonna cut in order to absorb the increases to the services that are so much of a priority, and public safety for the town is one of them. So once we get the green list, hopefully we'll have a certified green list by the end of January. We will start working on figuring out if there's any growth and going from there. Our budget season normally begins now, and we will start putting our budgets together with the Board of Selectmen and then presenting around the second week of March to the Board of Finance. It is their job to pretty much tell us how much we can spend after we figure out what the Prop 46 allowable is. And then we have to go back and look at everybody's request that came in and figure out what are we gonna do with that money? Where would it mostly benefit the community as a whole? So, I mean, that's pretty much how it works. We won't have budget preparations till probably beginning of March. Anybody can usually go onto our website. That's where you find the most updated information. And, feel free to call the town hall, talk to myself, talk to the selectmen, come to meetings. That is one of the biggest things that we try to tell people is we need to hear your voice because we don't always know what's your expectation or what's important to you. So we think what's the most important thing to the community as a whole of service that we can provide. And one last one. Victor had mentioned that he came to the Board of Finance to let us, at a Board of Finance meeting to let them know that they may need an additional appropriation to fund the current budget. Well, based on Prop 46, there's only $50,000 left that they can come and ask for. Because we can't go over that limit. And when we went to present our budget last year, it failed. Because a lot of people either didn't know about it or didn't come out and vote, and it failed. So we had to go back and reduce another $50,000 out of our budget because we were already at the max allowable under Prop 46. So we had to reduce the budget, which put a bigger strain on the school. And now if they come back for an additional appropriation, all they can get is 50,000. That doesn't go far at all. So again, please, please come to meetings. All of our information is on the town's website, it's on the school's website. Come to see as we present our budgets, the struggles that we face. Feel free to call the finance office, come see the selectmen, come to their meetings. And maybe we can figure out a way to make this work. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. It's a little earlier than 7, but, I think unless, does Board of Ed have anything more you'd like to add? Yes?
I could just, yeah. Hi, I'm Adam Kester, I'm Vice Chair of the Board of Ed. And I just wanted to add one thing to make it super clear based on our last Board of Ed meeting. I think we had a comment from the audience saying, geez, you know, I've heard year over year, your budget, you don't have enough money, you need more money, but you always seem to manage to do fine. So why would we give you more money? You don't need it. The sky is falling. We don't believe you need it. And I think what I want to say to answer that to everybody, to make it crystal clear, and you don't have to believe me, the data is out there. You can come to our academic committee meetings. You can come to our Board of Ed meetings. Our schools, in relation to our peer schools, in relation to the state, we're falling, we're failing. A lot of us moved here for good schools, they're great schools, and they are great schools. We have teachers that care, that love our children, that really want them to do well. The problem is, we have less and less of them. And the numbers Victor showed you are real. 14 less teachers. They're not getting SPAN. They're not getting gifted and talented. They're not getting curriculum coordinators to help the kids that are struggling figure out where they get the intervention, how they get there. If you look at our numbers, our schools are not as good as they were 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago. They're trending negative. They're getting worse every year, and we're getting less and less money. And when Victor says we're gonna lose 900,000 by 2030, he doesn't mean total. That's year over year. This year we lose 100. Next year we lose 200 something. By 2030, we're losing 900,000 that year. Because we have the ability to pay, we do not have the willingness to pay. Because of Prop 46, our Board of Finance is tied, they can't say, we think you should pay and please do vote. They're not allowed to let you vote on how much you think you should pay as a town. We say we want to know your input, how much you care about the schools. It doesn't matter. You're not allowed to vote for that. They can't say we're gonna up it so that we're average in Connecticut. They can't give you that number because of Prop 46. They're not allowed to. Let that sink in. They cannot ask you to vote to fund the schools and the town as you may want to. They can't have you do that because of Prop 46. You're only allowed a certain amount, and that certain amount every year becomes less and less because we can't raise our taxes, we can't raise the amount we take in by more than that amount the state's cutting. So not only have we been getting worse, we will continue to get worse. And I know you've seen property values depend on education, which they absolutely do. If you're not moving, you might not care. We hear sometimes, why should I pay? My kids already went through the schools. They got enough at the time. But state mandates. We're mandated to pay certain things. We're mandated to have certain programs. And at some point, what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to list out state and federal mandates. We're gonna need to list out things we can cut, and we're gonna have to start cutting them. And that's not programs you might care about, that's teachers. We have what, 20 kids, 22 kids in a class? Is 30 the right number? Is 40? We have band, we all love band, we're proud of band, we have a concert. I don't know, we're not mandated to have band. We're not mandated to have Spanish. We're gonna have to look at real things that matter to people. And now's the time that we have to act so we don't have to get into that. None of us want to. This is the most frustrating thing I do in my life is to be on here. For the last 5 years, it's
What can we hold on to? We know we're gonna lose, we know we're gonna get worse. What can we do to get less? That's the game we play every year. And when we say we make do, that's what we mean. We manage to get less worse than we could have get. We're not getting better, and we have no path to get better unless we fix this financial.
Okay, we're gonna start a little bit earlier on the, we made the mistake of standing in the hallway, but we recognize them standing there. John Navarro is, the highway superintendent, and he's just gonna say a few words about what his needs are, specific to equipment, diesel, gas, et cetera, et cetera. So, John.
It's gonna be a tough year, I know that. Especially the way you guys do, very fortunate enough. Possibly, the factory up to, we have a lot of things done, guys. Our entire budget for fleet oil and tires is $13,000. We are looking at, by the way, I'm hoping to retire this year. So with that being said, we have 9 members right now. With that being said, when I retire, one of my crew has said he would step up. I've been trying to train him in some of the stuff. He's a very smart guy. He knows how to do my job. And, very good in the position, but because of the budget situation, the town is thinking about not adding a 9th teamster. So he would be out of the union and he would be more administrative than out with the crew working. So that leaves 8 teamster members, which the town would have to negotiate with the teamsters, because right now, as our contract reads, if all teamsters aren't working, we can't hire part-time people, and we depend on part-time people for winter plowing, for rec field maintenance, and general overall assistance with the Public Works Department. So we could potentially lose 2 people, which would be devastating. There'd be longer plow runs. The roads wouldn't be cleared as fast as they are now. We try to get out in front of the buses, so the buses don't have any issues. That would affect that. The transfer station may be affected. We may, right now, we're open 4 days a week. We may have to look at that and possibly close the transfer station 1 or 2 days a week. I know everybody loves the transfer station that uses it, and it's a great service. We hope we can keep it up. But things are just all over the place, and it's very difficult to budget for this. So just want people to be aware. If anyone has any questions, I'll answer them the best I can.
Talking about transfer station, talking about, I had a discussion, I never argued with a lady at, Fruit Evelina's, And she was a big proponent when they voted down the budget last year, and I said, that's fine. I said, it may come to pass, we can do your road with a plowed on Tuesday or Thursday, but not both. And I said, you think I'm kidding, don't you? And as John just said, if we have less staff and we're trying to get out ahead of buses, your road may not be cleared at the time it normally has been, and stuff like this. Yes.
We have done that in the past, and we pretty much do that now. I know the school locked in prices for heating oil. I attempted to lock in diesel prices and gasoline prices. I was not able to do that. We locked in heating prices for the school and for the town hall. I'm still working on locking in fuel prices as far as the fuel depot goes. So, yeah, so that may have to go out to bid this year. We do have a company that has been extremely reliable. In the past, when we've gone out to bid, we've gotten bad fuel. The buses all stopped running when it got really cold. It's kind of a nightmare. I'm working with Safeway to see if I can lock in prices now for next year. So.
Right now, we're about $50,000 shy of making it self-funded. So I'm looking at this current year's budget. And I'm gonna go from July to December because that's as far as we have with revenue. So the transfer station budget, bear with me, is $274,987 a year. So far, as of December 31st, we have collected $22,452. And that's mainly because the majority of the collections for the permits is right now. Starting January 1st, we start selling new permits. So my guesstimate is, I know we increased them a little bit again this year. Unfortunately, if everything else goes up, we have to increase our rate. So I'm probably gonna say we'll be probably collecting at least another 200,000, but we are not there yet. We've talked about trying to make it more self-funded. In order for that to happen, we would have to raise the prices again. We're trying to go up slowly. We would like to be able to operate that, not being dependent on the town. A lot of towns that I've looked into, they have their transfer station is a separate service, so it's not part of their actual general fund. So that is the difference right now. It's about a $50,000 difference between making it 100% self-sufficient versus the amount we have to contribute to keep it open.
Okay, we're gonna open it up to general forum, and I'd like to introduce Attorney Ed Higgins, who made the mistake of answering the phone when I called. So Ed has agreed to be the moderator for tonight. I would ask you to come up to the podium. And Ed, if you have questions specific to anybody here, the superintendent, me, Karen, whatever, you just refer them over. So thank you. I'm not sure if there's one.
But maybe I know there's a lot of folks that probably have questions or comments, just trying to see how we can try to get everybody to have their fair say. What I'm gonna ask is if anybody that wants to come up, to ask a question or a comment, maybe we could start to have people line up along the wall over there, maybe 5 at a time, and then you can just gradually, as we go through, everybody work our way through it. And what we'll try to do is try to get everybody to have an opportunity to speak. If you can try and keep your questions and comments to like 3 minutes. And then once everybody has had a chance to speak, if there's any repeat questions or people that want to make additional comments. So who wants to break the ice and go first? My name's Steve Elliott. I'm the chief of Bungay Fire. I just want to speak on the ambulance for a moment. Volunteerism is an all-time low. The fire departments are all struggling, and one of the things we rely on currently is the ambulance patrol when we have medical calls. There are times where I have my volunteers that are at work, we all work different schedules, and it's critical that we get the care and the patients that we have. It's all of you out there that we're responding to. That ambulance responding in a timely fashion is key when you guys have an emergency. When we can't get out, it's imperative that that ambulance is staffed and gets out. So allocating that money so that we have the 24/7 coverage is critical for your safety in the town of Woodstock. The people that work for WEMS work extremely hard. They've gotten their numbers up tremendously in over a month, which is unheard of. Bungay Fire is in support of Woodstock EMS being able to make the coverage that we can for you. And that's critical so that when you guys have an emergency, your loved one is hurt, we're there. If we don't have the volunteerism to get there, that ambulance being paid is your last line of defense unless we call mutual aid in. Once we call mutual aid, that extends those time frames out tremendously. 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. If you're an emergency, 2 minutes seems like an hour and a half. So when you're waiting 25 minutes because we didn't have enough funding to provide the ambulance what they need, that's when you're really gonna understand how critical it is that the Board of Finance is able to put that money for the ambulance. And that could be any ambulance, but having the ambulance in town is the most critical thing that I can put forth today. Volunteerism is down, and that is why the ambulance had to go 24/7. It's not really an option to go back anymore, unless you don't want an ambulance to be showing up in a timely manner. So from Bungay Fire, that's one of our greatest assets, is making sure that ambulance is coming for you guys.
Thank you. Next. So what the first thing that I can do, it has this set up. The other side, I still remember my other, these budget challenges are not. I would just leave you with this thought. Our last meeting, tried to develop their, out of their budget situation. And the town is probably one thing for them to start. Here.
Okay, Zoom people, can you hear me? Okay, we've got a few questions. Let me scroll back. Wendy Costa asked if, sorry, there's a lot. How actively do we pursue grants? Do we have a part-time grant writer or someone on staff that is experienced? And I don't know if this is for Board of Ed or town or both, but. Oh, fire department too, okay. Can anybody hear me? Okay, it's better now. One of the struggles we as a town are facing for the town hall is not having somebody who is, on staff as a grant writer. A lot of times it's myself or Crystal, John. Sometimes working with Dave Elliott or, trying, I don't know, like that, we're not even just with Russ Downer, because we don't really get involved in yours, but like trying to work with Dave on some of the grants from FEMA. We worked on grants for FEMA for, COVID. We don't have the time, and I know that sounds terrible, but a lot of us put a lot more hours in than our regular jobs because we've been handed a lot of extra things during COVID as well. So one of my suggestions this year in our upcoming budget is speaking with our first selectman is we are missing out on a lot of money because we don't have somebody to write grants. So that is one thing that we may be looking forward to in our upcoming budget is trying to find a salary for a part-time grant writer because I think there is a lot of money out there that we're missing out on. But if you don't have the proper staff, then we do miss out on a lot of opportunities. Some of the grants we do get, we have to make sure that we can abide by the guidelines. Some we can, some we cannot. But I know that the firefighters, the EMS, our fire marshal, they're always trying to apply for grants. Matter of fact, they applied for a grant for a piece of equipment that did not get passed. So sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't, but no, right now the town side does not have a grant writer.
And I'll second what Karen was talking about. Grants are available out there. Sometimes they are difficult to find. We have John Thurlow, our business manager. We received a lot of grant funding over the last few years because of COVID. We have a American Rescue Plan on $1.3 million grant that will be ending this year. With that grant, we were required by the state of Connecticut to hire additional intervention teachers for reading, mathematics, also to hire mental health professionals. We hired a social worker, a wonderful person who's a member of our community. Those funds are expiring this year. So that adds on to the frustration that we're experiencing with our budget because we don't want to lose our interventionists because we have the most significant learning loss in 100 years. And the generation that we lose that, so look for grants. We're constantly looking for grants. One of the problems goes back to my original presentation. A lot of grants at the school district level are based on high-need students, high-need communities, and those are the kinds of things that we often don't qualify for. There's a special grant for early childhood. You don't qualify because your community demographics don't qualify. So those are some of the frustrations. There is money flowing out there, but a lot of it is based, as Karen knows, on your community needs. So I'm sure you want.
So the town also did receive funding from ARPA. It's a little bit works differently than how the school works. We got approximately 2.3 million. Basically, what our selectmen did is they opted to elect a standard allowance, and what that means is they can use that to provide services to the town that you are already used to in your budget. or some funding for things we can't, like trucks, maybe an ambulance, a tanker. We purchased, Scott breathing apparatus for Bungie. We've done dive equipment. We've helped Muddy Brook get some stabilizer and airbag equipment. So we just updated on communication system, so that all of our fire, EMS, highway department, they can all be on a similar radio frequency, so that way they can respond to emergencies quicker, talk to each other quicker, possibly talk to, I think, the state police. Listen to the state police quicker. I've really been involved in a lot of this, but I'm losing it right now. Anyway, there's so many different things to go over, but we do get grants that we don't apply for just because we're a municipality. One of them is Town Aid Road. That money can only be used for roads. We can't put it in our operating budget. It's the same thing with the municipal aids and grants. Again, it has to be used for specific items. We can't put it in our operating budget. So some of these grants we get just for being a municipality, but those also depend on the state. So just as one example, our Town Aid Road, if the state doesn't bond, we don't get the money. So that's how the state's doing. At the state level, they're bonding $30 million a year to give the municipalities Town Aid Road money, so we have extra money to work on the road. Again, there's a lot of money out there, but again, we don't always have the staff, or we don't always qualify for certain grants because we are a municipality.
One of the,
Just as a quick follow-up. Many times in conversations with citizens in town, people raise issues. Rarely do they raise solutions. So while we're talking about grants, if there anybody out here that has experience writing grants, I'm at the town hall. So I'll sign you up. No, seriously, if you have experience writing grants, give me a call. I'd like to talk. All right? Next. Ed, back to you.
Next.
I would like to go next, but I think Russ has his hand up for something.
Just to quickly speak on grants, the 3 fire departments in town have applied for and received grants for, the past several years. I know, Woodstock Volunteers received a grant 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, for a washer and dryer. It's not your typical washer and dryer, it's commercial grade firefighter washer and dryer. It used to be, the dirtiest guy that came out of the fire was the coolest guy. Well, studies show that the dirtiest guy that came out of the fire nowadays is the guy that's most likely to get cancer. So now we have a washer and dryer that's, available to anyone that needs it from the fire service, whether it's somebody in Woodstock or one of our neighboring towns. I know Bungie has received over $500,000.
In about 15 years, department has gone for AFT grants. In the past 15 years, we've probably saved the town about $500,000 between rescue equipment, SCBA's, UTV, multitude of different grants that we've gone for through the years that had no cost effect on the town.
And I know Moneybrook has as well.
Yeah, we got a SCBA air compressor, we got a grant for the first cardiac arrest thumper. And we've been actively putting in the AFG grant for rescue equipment and for the tanker. One big thing though is those are extremely competitive. They go from East Coast to West Coast, but we have been putting in, trying to get that.
Yeah, and there's a waiting period after you receive one grant. You have to wait, I think, 3 years before you can apply for another grant. And like Fire Marshal Barron said, it's very competitive out there. It's sad when volunteer fire department for Woodstock looked and lost the grant to Mohegan Sun Fire. That's, that's all I don't think anybody else is that. Thanks, Megan, you want to?
I have a procedural question. When do you receive the grand list number? When do we know how much our budget can increase? So by January 31st, you'll know what the grant what the grant has increased, so you'll know what that number would be, or how much the general government, debt service, and schools, those budgets could increase in the next fiscal year 24.
Depends on when I actually have time. The calculation doesn't necessarily be on the same day I get. it. So. That's the rest.
That was, I guess, to my next point. So I know in March, usually when the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education go before the Board of Finance to present their budget. But by that time, those boards have already thoroughly gone through their budgets. So I think it's too late for the residents to let you know if they have any suggestions for that budget, because our elected experts will have already gone through it, right? So what could be a deadline, to Jay's point, of giving you all feedback, if we have ideas about what are possible solutions for the budget? When do you need to hear from us by?
I would say by December, before the end of December, we could start setting out our budget.
By the end of January? I realize ideally it would be by the end of December, but we're already in January.
February with our discussions. So for me, because most of them would probably come to, I would prefer, it would be fine in December. Come to trying to get their budget request, and it's a lot of time.
So we, at this point, for fiscal year 24, we need to work simultaneously, right? You all need to be working, we've had access to the town attorneys, all the budgeting stuff, all the audits and everything. And we might have just ideas. Because by March, you all are actually really putting things together, because early April, we have the annual town meeting, right? And then we have referendum. So we have to work fast, if we're gonna do this. So my request to you, since you have access to all of this information, is really looking at what can we do from your perspective. We may come to you and say, we want to focus on the ambulance. You all are the ones who will be able to tell us how we can do that. Because you'll know. You'll get to a point where you'll know whether we actually just can't do this and we have to cut. And here's what I ask you. There's a lot of pride in the services that the schools provide and the general government provides. I think sometimes that pride gets in the way of admitting when we're not doing well and providing that data. So it leaves us to think that everything's fine and to be able to continue to operate that way. Show us if we're not, because we might actually have ideas for you for how it can be corrected. Don't tell us the sky is falling if it's not, because then we're not going to believe it. But if we're truly not doing well, if we truly need help, we need to know. Otherwise, we're just going to come out and go for the budget and carry on. So please let us know. And at that point, regarding the ambulance, so money was taken from the account to actually a down payment on a new ambulance to help fund the 24/7 currently. Okay, so where did the money come from to be able to fund the 24/7 ambulance just due June 30th?
I just turned my off.
Yeah, it was from the EMS savings.
How do we replenish that sometime, right? Especially if we're gonna carry into the next year. So what is the plan to do this? How are we going to do that? Is the state requirement that we have this? You know, in addition to a bunch of other state mandates, how are we going to do this? I honestly don't know right now. If I have told my friends, I left elected service a year and a half ago. Unless something was really worrisome to me, I was not going to come back for this. And I'm really worried. I'm worried about the DPW, I'm worried about the libraries, I'm worried about schools, and in my DNA. I'm worried about EMS. I'm worried about just how we're going to pull this all together. And what I'm particularly worried about is I know it seems like we've got a lot of time, but we don't. We don't have a lot of time if we really want to have a positive effect for the next fiscal year and be able to maintain. the service. Thank you.
Hello? So, for Megan, you did serve on the board of Ed for a very long time, so you're well aware of how the budget process works. We have struggled with this for years. For years, we have. I think that when I first started working on the budget, we used to have rooms like this. And it went from rooms like this to just members of the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen, myself, Janice, and the Board of Finance. So how do you work on a budget when no one shows up to express their opinion? No one shows up to tell us what do they want, what's important to them in their community. So we're guessing by what we think is the most appropriate services that we have to fund. If there shouldn't be a deadline, I guess is my point. It was the same as ARPA. We put out there, we had a public forum, we had an open email line. And if maybe we got 20 recommendations out of 8,228 residents in this town, we might have gotten 20 recommendations on our email. To me, that shows not much interest. We are here, whether we're elected, appointed, paid, volunteer, all trying to work to a common goal. Yet our public does not participate, and I'm not trying to sound sarcastic or mean. It's a plea to have you come and tell us what is really most important. I mean, maybe some of you don't want to pay more money in taxes for the schools, but you're willing to pay for EMS. We have to balance it. There's only so much money that goes around. And at the end of the day, once we figure out the max allowable that we can spend under Prop 46, it's up to your Board of Finance to decide if they want to go to the allowable. And if they do, what's it going to cost the town? This past year, 2023, we reduced our mill 4.65 mils, if I'm not mistaken, because one mill is equivalent to $924,000. We can't collect more than we need. People did not come out to vote. So again, we had to go and reduce the budget again. And then finally, I think after, there was some media on winning, people finally came out and voted. If you don't know in your town when it's time to vote on your town budget that's affecting you personally, then call the town hall, look on our website. We have tried many, many times to put information in the paper. We've tried to put information on social media, it's on the website. I mean, there's only so much we can do. I also feel that as residents whose pockets are affected need to get involved as well. So until we work together, I don't think we're gonna solve the problem. That's my point here. We have to start working together, and you've got to let us know what you want. Because if you don't, there are several other services that we're gonna be forced to cut, including open space, libraries, highway personnel, more town hall personnel. Maybe we only have a part-time building official. Maybe we have part-time town clerk services. Maybe we don't have libraries that we can afford. Maybe we can't afford a lot of public and welfare, like mental health services that we have to outsource. We have to provide EMS. That's the difference. So I'm hoping more people will come to meetings, talk to us, tell us what you want. If we have meetings every single month of the year between Board of Finance, Board of Ed, and Board of Selectmen, there's no reason people can't attend. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
I just want to add too, and understanding the budgetary process, the reasons why we talk about The reasons why the budget process works the way it is, the way this town is unique with Prop 46 versus other surrounding towns that don't have some of the same issues that we do. So there's a puzzle piece that creates us to look at things in a certain way. And maybe the rest of the town doesn't completely thoroughly understand how that is. And that's what this meeting here is all about, so that everybody can kind of understand the constraints that we work with. And why, when we talk about limitations, and not only be able to go up to a certain percentage instead of some of the percentages we really need to go to. And explain that to the town, so the town can kind of see, look through those eyeglasses and see why we're talking the way we are about certain things that come up with these solutions.
Thank you, Ron. Sir?
Thank you. My name's John Windows. I've lived in town since 2000, so I'm a newcomer. I've been to a lot of these meetings when there are only one or two people there, but I've got to say, I'm tired of hearing community leaders blame us for this problem. These are leadership folks. We vote them in. They stand up and they volunteer their time to be leaders, and that's fantastic. But y'all gotta come up with some solutions, and I'm just gonna say it. Proposition 46 is the problem. Now, I'm sure Mr. Richardson will send a snarky letter to the villagers this week, and, you know, oh, these crazy guys, you know, we're up there. This is the problem. It's a math problem, folks, and it no longer works out. You fix it or get rid of it, but do something. Because otherwise, it makes us look like one of the greediest and nastiest towns in the state to put all our fiscal woes on the back of our children. It's, you know, the children who are at the very bottom are gonna get the services they need because it's mandated by the state, have to have it. Children that are at the top, hey, they're gonna do great. It's the kids in the middle. I had one of the kids that was way at the top and was fantastic. But the kids in the middle that struggle, that don't have the parents to help them, that to figure out how they should be best taught. They're the ones that suffer, and it is our responsibility. It's on us and on these folks. There's folks that have been on some of these boards forever and ever. And I come every year and I say, why don't you fix it? Oh, Proposition 46, we can't do it. We can't do that. You know, it's up to the voters. Last time it didn't go through. Well, wake up, folks. You know, I know, listen, if I had hair, it would be gray. And I see a lot of standing in the back there, a lot of folks with gray hair, and I get it. You don't have kids in the school system, it doesn't matter. My kids are both in college now, but God darn it. You know, it matters. Those are the kids that are gonna be taking care of us when we're in the wheelchairs and stuff, and when we're in, and we need them to be intelligent. And I know intelligence is not very fashionable these days, unfortunately, but damn it, it ought to matter. So I would just say, let's hope these people who are our leaders and are supposedly the best of us to come up with a way to fix this. And yeah, it's about timing and stuff. And listen, I have offered to volunteer to do things because I work in audio and video to do things and get a better Zoom connection. You know, there's 95 people right now on Zoom. Why isn't every meeting in this town on Zoom? I can't get to a 4 o'clock selectman meeting. I work in Hartford. I mean, I'm just a little tired of hearing it, that it's everybody's fault out here. I want every town meeting on Zoom so that we can stay a little bit connected. I want better press releases from the town on what's going on. You know, that's what I want. Now, I'll wrap it up, I'm sorry, but, so, I'm a single parent, I struggle to pay my taxes, okay? That's always late, and I'm always one of the ones, I'm probably, it's extra postage for them to send a reminder and so forth, but I always get it done. But damn it, I should be paying more taxes, because it is important for our kids, and I'm willing to do that. Drive by my house, and it's like that guy hasn't paid this house in 10 years. Yeah, it's a struggle, but damn it, there are things that are more important than just this, how much pocket money, and having a $50,000 pickup or whatever it might be. So let's wake up and let's get these folks off their hinds and working to figure out what that solution is, because they are leaders. Let's have you guys lead, okay? Tell us how we can fix 46, whatever else it might be.
I'm really tired of it, so that's all I got.
Yeah, I just want to.
Hello, it's Dia. Eugene.
Hello. Since I've been serving on the board for going on my 12th year now, I guess I'm one of those people. But in all those years, I've seen, Prop 46, go up for a vote on whether to eliminate it or keep it. And it routinely has always stayed. So that does go out to the voter. The voter has decided, the town has decided, and that's why these discussions have to keep going on, because as the environment changes, and times change, sometimes those things do end up being accurate. But it ends up being really kind of the voter that has to take all that into consideration. These meetings that we're having right now, I'm glad to see that it's a big turnout, but they usually aren't. And we're not trying to pass the blame on anybody, but we're also trying to be informative to the community so that they can understand what we are going through. So we can explain the process of what's going through, get an idea from everybody that's out there as to what they want. And maybe it is time that we need to look at Prop 46 in a different way. Maybe it means to amend certain portions of it. Maybe it means to eliminate it. Maybe it means to keep it, and everybody's happy with the status quo. That's the conversation we're having tonight, and that's the conversation we're going to continue for the next, budgetary year and going forward for the next 5. That's that forever.
One last thing I wanted to say about Prop 46 is both the town and the schools annually, we have sought out legal advice. So it's not that we're sitting here doing nothing and blaming you. We are trying to find ways to see how we can go about maybe getting something going so we can get more money. We cannot do this alone. Somebody or some people have to do it with us. We cannot just decide to cut out Prop 46. It's a town ordinance, it has to go to a town meeting. And again, every year for 20 years, I have letters going back to attorneys asking all different things that we can use to try to amend Prop 46. And every year the answer is, it's up to the voters. Thank you.
Evening, I'm John Leslie. Thank you, everyone. I'd really like to hear from the chair of the Board of Finance. We keep talking about our grand list and that we don't have a grand list from the assessor yet. And we won't. But I have a feeling that the chair of the Board of Finance probably gave us some good projections on what our revenue is going to be for next year. And we can match that against the $1,400,000 increases that the Board of Ed and the Board of Collections told us that we need. And we can try to figure out how do we move forward. Let's do side of the community, as residents and as leaders. So, Commissioner Story, some suggestions on where you think we're going to be as far as being able to fund this $1,400,000.
Right now, I don't see it coming from anywhere. I don't see any increase in grants coming from the state of Connecticut. We've already heard that we're gonna lose on the education side. We know that. As far as the grand list, because of the fact that, it went so high last year, and now things are starting to settle out, actually nosedive as far as property values go. I don't expect to see any increase in the grand list. That's my prediction. In the last 10 years, the grand list has only provided an additional $168,000 as the highest value in any one year. It's not a big generator. As far as Prop 46 goes, in the last 10 years, we've gone to the maximum all but 3 times. And the only difference is, if we'd have gone to the maximum, each year, the budget currently would only be $603,000, $604,000 higher than it is right now. That's not solving our problem. And the only reason why we didn't go to the max of Prop 46 for those other 3 years is the fact that when the budget was first brought forward, it was turned down. We've had cuts of as much as $400,000, $497,000 from the Prop 46 calculation. We've had as little as $15, which was 2 budget years ago. Last year, we brought it to the max. People voted it down. So if they're not happy with the high number, and that's as high as you can go, the only place we can go is low. And we knew that the services were required out there. So we threw out a $50,000 cut, hoping that the people bought it. And when the word got out there and they realized that if it didn't pass this time, the cuts were only gonna be greater, they finally approved the budget. There is a problem, and the Board of Finance, we can't do what our job really is unless we're allowed to put something reasonable out there for the people to vote on. They're the ones that make the final decision, you out there. We make a recommendation, but our recommendation can't be any higher than whatever Proposition 46 limits us to. You take it from there, figure out what the solution is. Come up with some ideas. That's why we're here. We're hoping you throw something out for us. Thank you.
Like,
Point follow.
okay, thank you. We've heard it loud and clear this evening that we need to come up with solutions. That is partially up to the community. I would like to ask the first selectman to schedule a second meeting, maybe in 2 weeks, maybe immediately after we have the grand list. And we have that number, and ask people, be taking steps on it, come up with some ideas, come up with some solutions that is the same thing to our elected officials. Come up with some ideas and give us a chance to come back and tell us about it. And give all of us a chance to, meet your ideas first. But we do need a follow-up meeting. So we need to be able to address it.
Can I address that first? Glenn, I think you're right, and solutions need to be had. What I would say is, now speaking for me personally and having seen this and been in it, there are only 2 solutions. Get rid of Prop 46, or you amend it to exempt half this stuff and you work around it for amendment. Those are your only solutions. We spend countless hours every year trying to figure out how to move a dollar from here to here to get less work. The town does the same thing. How to get less work. The Board of Finance, I truly feel for them, because they're like, well, town ordinance, Prop 46, and they go back and forth in their meetings, and at the end of the day, it's, okay, Prop 46, and then the town votes yes or no. I feel bad for that, but those are the solutions. And the question is, as a town, do we have an appetite to pay what we can afford, rather than to be able to afford this and pay this? That's the solution. The solution isn't us putting our thinking hats on or getting off our butts. The solution is the town should vote for Prop 46 if it's time for it to go or be amended. And if it's not, the town doesn't care about education or town services. Or they don't care to vote because it's not important to them. That's the answer. It's not complicated. It's easier.
I just have a question. It's around now, should we use the wrong timeline? Now, when is that due?
Can't hear you.
What's your question?
So in our town, we have the Bowen Fund, so that's 100 years that money was originally in, and it's around now, in the next like funding the fire department for EMS services? Okay, can everybody hear me? So yes, we do have Bowen funds. It was a $5,000 endowment almost 100 years ago. That fund will mature in 100 years, which is in May of 2027. Right now, we have about 6.2 million in there. It fluctuates with the market. I think last year was up to a little over 8 million. The problem with the Bowen funds is we can't just take that money and spend it any way we want. We cannot invest it any way we want. It's all in funds that we have no control over. When that money is matured, that has to stay there. We have to have a spending endowment. Most likely, we will take the dividends, put it onto our estimated revenues, and it's to defer taxes to the town of Woodstock. It is not meant to just take $6 million and spend it on anything we want, and we're currently working on that with an attorney now. Based on our auditor's advice, we need to have a spending endowment in place. Thank you.
This is how I get in trouble. I'm sitting there thinking Jay's ignoring me. I'm not. Seriously, you would ask about having a follow-up meeting. I would have to talk to the full board of selectmen. I'd have to talk to the chair of education, of finance, superintendent, that sort of thing. I'm not against it, but I will let you know.
My name is Connor. I have two roles in Woodstock. One is, I run the West Woodstock Library. And so about the libraries, I will say there are 4 tiny libraries in town. And our per capita spending on libraries is $14. The state average is 56. If what you're saying is we have the ability to pay up here over the middle, why are we paying so low? I think have been providing wonderful service with that amount of money, but it sounds like that's been doubled. I think if we're in jeopardy of losing that little bit of library funding and we can afford to pay it, it's shameful. Secondly, I volunteer as the municipal agent to the elderly. So in that role, I help people find the services that they need as they age. I got a call today from someone who asked, what programs does Woodstock have for senior citizens? We basically have nothing. It's not a good town to grow old in, but you've got someone there to take care of you and figure everything out for you. Once again, we have the means to provide senior services, but apparently with Prop 46, we can't. So I think we need to do something about that for our senior citizens.
Okay, I have a Zoom question from Wendy Costa for the Board of Ed and. I have a question from Russ Wilmot. Let me scroll down. Sorry, there's a lot of questions and okay, Russ Wilmot asks, are the middle school and elementary schools and properties town owned? Are the middle school and elementary school staff town employees?
Yeah, the town does own all property in the school system, and the employees, they're all paid for by the total budget of the town, but they are considered employees of the Board of Education.
Sir?
Thank you, Neil Warner. Just a quick comment on, Prop 46. Honestly, I think we need to keep it, and it's not really a government problem, it's a community problem. You know, my wife and I, we choose to homeschool, and that's completely our choice. Above and beyond our taxes, and we don't send 6 boys, yeah, you heard it right, 6. We don't send our 6 kids to the public school, that's our choice. On top of that, we spend even more money on our own curriculum. We send our kids to some co-ops, sometimes drive them down to Canterbury, because that's where some co-ops meet. It's a community problem, not a government problem for this. If we wanna find things, let's reach out as a community and find the solutions instead of just putting it all on, let's spend more. Maybe there are people in your neighborhood, and we do have neighborhoods here, that have skills that they can help with tutoring, or they can help bring firewood to somebody who needs it. It's not always just raise taxes and just fund things. It's about getting to know your neighbors and being an actual community. And Woodstock should be a town where we have pride in being a good community, where we actually walk out for each other instead of just saying, let's just raise the tax. Because that's on all of us in some ways that we may not be able to help out. Just food for thought. Thank you.
My name is Myron Sakyu. I've here in Woodstock for I think 38 years now. I'm very happy that this opportunity has arisen to discuss these very important issues. However, every one of us out here is at a tremendous disadvantage because we don't know what the parameters are for making this kind of change. I've never served in the Board of Finance. I haven't been a town official, so I don't know what it is I can do. You know, we can propose a cake sale, cookie sale, but you know, that's not what's needed. We need to understand what it is that it will take to address these issues. What changes need to be made in legislation and how do we make them? What is the first step that we can take as the citizens? Do we send around a referendum, a petition? Well, what do we ask for? I would suggest that what we need is workshops organized by you, legal staff, members of the financial boards, to tell us what it is that is possible, what avenues are possible for making these changes. Because we don't know that. We can sit here and talk and put the goal, but we don't know what is it that we can do. Calling you up and saying, oh, maybe you can do this. Well, that's not going to work. We need to work and act as a very large body of citizens of this community. And we need to understand what we can do and what we can't do. And that information has not been provided to us. And that is what we need before we can make and take any action.
Can you hear me? I would recommend, emailing or reaching out to the town clerk's office because, she would know the statutes on how to go about doing certain things in town. That would be, you know, as Myron said, maybe a petition needs to be started, but that's not, you know, that's something that you have to talk to the town clerk. I don't know how to start a petition. I would think that that would be what would need to be done with so many signatures before it's brought forward to the town. So. Hold on.
My name is Michelle Wad. I just want to note that all of our boards are governed by state statute, and we have very specific tasks that we are allowed to perform. So if people are frustrated with us because they feel like we're not doing something, it may be because we're not allowed to do something. We have statutory authorities and tasks that we need to carry out, and the Board of Ed responsibilities are different from the Board of Selectmen, and they're different from the Board of Finance. So I just want to let everybody know that we have parameters too.
We can't just provide information or advice on how to get things done, because that may conflict with what our requests are.
Hi, my name is Mark Foliato, 44-year resident, town of Woodstock. 20 plus you remember the Michael Fire Department was old age, up to age, can't fight fire. Actually, myself and 8 other members of a school building committee put the school together some 25 plus years ago. This is the new school in Woodstock. Pretty good, huh? Very good. Besides that, because of those experiences I've had with the town, I know how well the town tries to spend money. Fire department is very conscientious about every dollar they spend. The school board is very conscientious about how much money is being spent in this town. We all complain about taxes. We can't do anything about the federal government because it's a representative government, and they're not gonna listen to you or all the other people in this group. The state, Hartford's not gonna listen to us. But these people up here are listening to us. And it's up to us, how can we do this? Years ago, one of the options was, we tried to get a fire tax put into this town, which is not being part of the town of Woodstock budget. The fire tax was overturned by 3 votes, maybe 4 votes, I can't remember exactly. 3, thank you. And, that would have taken any money out of this budget for fire service. But it's now the town has to be responsible for the fire service. Is the fire tax an option? I don't know. We're in a reaction program right now, or reaction plan. We're not in an action plan. So one of the things is, how can this board, people in this town, decide to overcome these issues? It's not gonna go away. It's that simple. It is not gonna go away. Education, roads, fire services, medical services, etc., are part of the community. We're in the lowest mill rate in Wyndham County. The lowest. Plainfield is 25% higher than us. And I don't know who wants to live in Plainfield. We gotta say more. So I'm just saying, we have to do something. I know I'm preaching to the choir I'm probably here right now. But I mean, we have to get out, we have to come up with a plan, and we have to move forward in a progressive manner. This is a wonderful town. I lived in Thompson before this and Webster. And I chose Woodstock because of the beauty of the town, because of the community spirit. And if we don't have the community spirit in this town, then we're all in trouble. And that's all I'm gonna say. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have a question from O'Neill. If we got a new radio system, why is there still huge areas that radio communication cuts out in town?
Talk about for fire service.
I believe so. Can I give my?
So the new system that we went through is piggybacking off the state system. We, as fire departments, are currently operating on what's called a UHF system, which there's many dead spots in town. By allowing that upgrade to be on the state system, there's called a cross band. That allows us to talk on the state system, but using UHF channels. By doing that, it opens up a lot of the town so that we don't have those holes and dead spots. So we do have a much higher communication rate than we did before. So that was the goal. It also allowed the town DOT, the fire departments, emergency management, the fire marshal's office, and the constables to all be able to communicate on one radio, which is one of the key pieces of emergency service. So, Fire Marshal Barron, on one of their calls during a snowstorm, being able to communicate with the highway department, they were able to get sanding and plowing, which allows our emergency services to get to the scene. That's a prime example of why we went with this system. It allowed us to get the communication through all agencies within Woodstock while giving better coverage for emergency services as well.
Hi, my name is Jessica Weaver Booth. I grew up in town, moved away for about 25 years and came back in 2019. I think about it, people have to go. So one of the things I've heard tonight is the only way to give more freedom to the boards with the budget is to overturn Prop 46. I also heard the support for the people who don't want to get rid of Prop 46. I think the big question that needs to be put out there is that even if we got rid of Prop 46, you all could propose the budget and the citizens could still vote it down, correct?
Correct.
So even without Prop 46, we have, as the citizens, have the power to show up at the polls and say no. So again, it gets back to involvement. And this is fantastic, and thank you all 95 people who are also on Zoom. We gotta keep showing up, we gotta keep having these conversations. We also have to do the work. The one big change that I know the fire departments have mentioned, but I mean, the librarians could say it too, and churches could say it too, and schools could say it too. Volunteerism is down in all aspects of the United States society. It's not the same. It's not the same how it was when I was a kid. It's not even the same how I was when I was in my 20s. It just keeps going down. And some of that is because we do all have to work full-time jobs and then we want to be with our families. And so we don't have the time and energy to volunteer. But that means it has to get paid for. We have to do one or the other. We have to show up and put in the sweat equity, or we have to pay for it. Thanks. Okay, I have a question from Chuck. This question is for the Board of Ed and Superintendent. What is the ratio of teachers to students in pre-K to 8, paraprofessionals to classes, and special needs students, special education teachers / support personnel?
At the pre-K to 8 level, our class sizes generally are hovering in kindergarten. We have about 16 to 17 in a class, but up through first grade through 8th grade, we vary anywhere from 18 to some classes at the middle school have 24 students on it, depending on what the subject is. And you'll find that variation across the board, especially at the high school level where you have advanced placement courses and stuff, where you may only have a handful of students. But in the pre-K to 8, that's generally the range that we're in, is between that 16 in kindergarten up to 24, up through, first grade through 8th grade. And as far as special education services, those are mandated by state and federal statutes. So we provide paraprofessionals based on the need of the student, and that fluctuates from year to year.
How many rooms have there?
As far as rooms that have pairs in them, we don't have regular education pairs except for 2 in our kindergarten. The rest are special education paraprofessionals identified for specific students and specific needs.
Still any other?
Okay, this question is from Abigail, and this is to everyone. Is there anything that could be done with the Woodstock Fair to raise funds for the town? To my knowledge, they do not pay taxes, but also none of the money raised there goes to the town. The rising prices there for a booth makes it difficult for even our community to be able to sell / raise money.
That's why you get the big box. It's funny, the people sitting to my left and to my right both smiled because they gave me the look like, don't you dare. Actually, to the person who asked the question, that's a separate entity, it's private. They don't pay taxes, Woodstock Fair is historical. I don't know what, if anything, they do to support the schools. They do? Oh, okay. In answer to the, no, this gentleman in the back is saying that we could charge a tax, and that money could go to the town. I don't know that. I'll talk to Pat Boyd and ask. But in answer to the question, the person that's on Zoom, it's a separate entity and has nothing, it's situated in the town, but has nothing to do with the town and the schools and that sort of thing. So again, I don't know. Yeah.
First, Board of Finance, resource and city connect. This by statute. Okay, but by statute, it means what? By statute of this, the people in this room? No, by Connecticut General Statute, it is that any fair, agricultural fair in the state of Connecticut receives money from the State Department of Agriculture to run an agricultural fair, is exempt from all local property taxes. Okay, local property taxes, how about service fees? All the fire and protection services provided. Certain agencies, can you tell us, to inform us whether that is factually correct? I'm not really certain. I know they're a tax exempt, separate entity. I've always understood that the town has limitations in terms of being able to tax. Maybe as the gentleman in the back referenced that Pat Boyd said there might be some ability to look at an event chart. That's something that might be looked at. But right now, no one in this room knows pretty well. Is that fair? Well, I don't know. I mean, you can probably get a. Well, you're saying you don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Jimmy Kelly's here, speak up. Ron, did you want to? Something about fire. They didn't remember that we said. Here's your question. I think your question was the fire service. We contract with the fair for both fire and EMS. So we negotiate a contract with them during the fair. So in the way it works, and the chief can explain it better than I can if I miss anything, is that we, by the contract, how many hours each fire person works and each department works, we get a portion of the contract that we receive from the fair. So if Bungie works 80 hours during the fair, then they get a bigger portion than what anyone else does. That's right. So the chief does the operations portion of it, but we bring in mutual aids from other departments to supplement what we have on the fair. To the actual event during the 4 days leading up to it. We respond down there like we would anybody else in a 911. That answers the question. Fine. So if someone goes to a stipend program for the firefighters that are there on the ground, would, staying there if the service is needed. So it also goes for a cost, our EMS cost, or at some point down there, it could be dependent upon the event and how many people that, we have to figure that amount in too. So it does go back into some of our, whatever's left, which believe it or not, is not a lot, goes back into a general fund, yes. say. I can't answer anything else for Woodstock Fair, but I do know that we'll come. Yes, sir.
There's also an ordinance in town that we do, bill the fair for other organizations that have events on the fairgrounds or other areas for us.
Thank you, Rob, thanks. Sir, anybody else that hasn't had a chance to raise a question or comment? George, what did you come on?
George McCoy, I live on Route 169, I'm right next door to the fire station, so I guarantee when they tell you they're running all these calls, they are, because I run them with them. I used to be in the EMT in California, so I appreciate what you're doing, and our department was disbanded because we could no longer get people to volunteer, it's just not in the old glory days of colonial Woodstock, back in colonial times, when Chief Dowd was still on the Board of Finance back then. People worked in the local mills. It was easy. A lot of times business owners allowed you to leave to respond to calls. So it was easy to get volunteers. I know today that's not the case. But my question is something I heard tonight. I want to make sure I'm hearing this right. Federal law prohibits you, volunteers now, to serve as EMTs. You have to pay your crews. That's the way I understood it. So we were faced with two avenues. We could go with the volunteer route, which we don't have a lot of volunteers left to be able to do it. Or we could go with a paid employee route. Once you go with a paid employee, you can no longer volunteer by Federal Labor Standard Act for the organization that you're working. So an EMT can no longer, EMR no longer can volunteer for Woodstock Volunteer Fire Service. Fungi and Moneybrook, they can still volunteer. So because Woodstock Volunteers are the overseer through OEMS, and we're now employed, we have employees, you can no longer volunteer if you're being paid. And it's the same thing with the town. I think the town is faced with the same issue. So people who used to volunteer in town government, they're paid to the town, no longer do that. Is that correct? But they're not paid. But we now have employees, we now pay employees $1 an hour, an hourly wage. We're obligated by Federal Labor Standard Act. There was just a couple years ago in Montville, I believe it was, there was a lawsuit that was filed, and the federal government came back and said that you have to pay. You can no longer volunteer to be paid. The stipend program is completely different, up to a certain dollar amount.
I just want to follow up to that. It's not that you can't volunteer for the town. You can. You just can't. So basically, I'm just gonna use myself. I'm a appointed employee for the town of Woodstock. I can't get paid and then turn around and volunteer for more hours for my own job. So if I was an hourly employee and I worked 40 hours a week, but I needed to work 48, I can't volunteer 8 more hours of my own time to work. That's what we mean by it. It doesn't mean you can't volunteer for the town. It just means if you're a town paid employee, you cannot volunteer your job. Does everybody kind of understand what I'm trying to say? Okay, I just wanted that to clarify so that we still encourage people to please volunteer for boards and commissions. It's just the town people that are paid, and that's what is happening with our EMS. They're not getting the volunteer service, so they're now paying people, and those people that are paid cannot also volunteer for the same job they're getting paid for. Well, normally a salaried employee doesn't have specific hours. So we don't look at it that way, because if you're salaried, you have to work additional hours to get your job done. It's part of you being a salaried employee.
Okay, patiently waiting. No problem.
I just wanted to go back to the, Woodstock Fair question about what came to fire EMS personnel with and help support that. Quite frankly, I've done it now for my second year, and if there's any suggestion or instance there from anyone thinking that we're making some kind of a windfall off this, essentially at the end of the day, of spending 40 hours here over the weekend, maybe I can. It's largely community service, there's one of the other things that even suggesting is volunteers and they're just like my volunteers, not fire service, it's not there. But we're supporting the community. In terms of, not, I think it's a balance, so sure, one of our particular EMS is now in the position. But that now that's now taxable. So even if you want work and not set those funds, that is from that.
We apparently have a lot of redundant questions, so I just got a text that we're going to do a frequently asked questions that we will post on the town website and on the town Facebook page. Because apparently, my understanding is that we have a lot of similar questions about the fair, about Prop 46, and some other things. So for those of you on Zoom, you're not being ignored, and we will try to get a document out there to answer all of these questions. Thank you. Oh, and people here too. If it doesn't get asked, we will try to respond to all of your things and be able to publish that where you'll see it. Email.
I just have a basic question for you. I was just asked by, wondering if I would ask her questions. Is that okay if they're not my personal questions? Okay, I just want to, I need names and stuff like that. So a statement was made that a suggestion is a grant writer can work on a percentage. So it wouldn't necessarily be an employee, but he or she would receive a percentage of the grant that, he or she would able to bring to town. A statement that personal trash pickup is about $700 per year. I don't know if that is related to how much it costs for a dump sticker as far as comparing and contrasting.
I will
Maybe.
one question at a time.
I think the first one was a statement. Is it possible for a grant writer to receive a percentage of that person's salary, based on?
Okay. Yes, it depends on the grant, but yes, for the most part, a lot of times the grant does allow you to use the funding to have a program administrator or something like that. So it just depends on the grant.
The second statement, was about the, trash pickup, personal trash pickup is about $700 per year. Maybe you can say how much it is for, transportation stickers.
It's $200. Or if you're fortunate to be over 65, it's $105. But no, seriously, people complain, and we go up with the transfer station, and John mentioned it earlier on what the department fees are and that sort of thing. But people that complain, I always say, call Willie Ways, see what their price is.
Next question is related to a DPW project. And what was the cost of the Lebanon Hill Road improvement? So it was estimated at about 350,000 total.
So, yeah, we still have some work to do in the spring on Lebanon Hill.
But as Karen stated, I think the estimated cost was around 350. I'm not sure it came in that expensive, but there still is some expenses left. So that will be put together as soon as we're done with the project, which should be early summer.
Maybe about another 5 or 10,000.
Karen said maybe another 5 or 10,000 toward that project. I'm halfway through. With the reduction in town hall hours, the payroll from full-time workers decreased with that 1 day shutdown.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, so the town hall was operating at 37.5 hours Monday through Friday. When the town hall closed on Friday, anybody that was full-time or even part-time that worked on Fridays lost hours, about 6 hours.
The next question is, what amount of insurance reimbursement comes back as expense? What amount of insurance reimbursement comes back to expense? I'm sorry, I can't elaborate on that one. Maybe if, at the fire department. I'm sorry. Maybe the billing through the engine?
Last year, I think we brought in $190,000. That answers the question. However, we're also mandated by state and federal regulations on what we can charge for calls through Medicaid, Medicare, and the state rate. So that would be our part of our budget. What we're asking for the town would be for personnel services only. It doesn't include expenses outside of personnel services. Like John, we just had an ambulance that needed a tire fix. It was almost $2,000. Fuel costs are out of control. Oxygen, $570-something last month. So those, we're just asking for town services. And the rest would come out of like the building and hybrid project. So also, yeah, there's a new thing. I don't know if it's a statute or a mandate, but we can now start charging certain calls if they don't go to the hospital. But there's also guidelines by that, so we're now working on, how to do that to meet the state guidelines. So our run forms have to be updated, and we talk to the selectmen, let them know that we're trying to find the funds where we can without, taking money out of everyone's pocket.
One more question. This is for the school. It says, how do you address students coming from Southbridge and Dudley? Maybe you can address it from the KD and from the high school perspective.
Students, any student that, establishes residency in the town of Woodstock is entitled to the public education, Woodstock public school. So that is regardless of whether they're pre-K-8 or at Woodstock Academy. Once you establish residency, it doesn't matter what town you come from, we are required by state law to provide that service.
When I get the follow-up question,
Can we elucidate slightly on that?
and never mind, keep on going.
To make that, I think, a little more clear, I think, Victor, we've been through this so many times, I think the answer at the end of the question at the beginning. You're entitled to services as long as you are a resident. You don't come from another town, establish residency, leave, and still have us being obligated to pay for your education, regardless of what you may think. If you're a resident, we have to pay. If you're not a resident, we don't. The trick is catching them. People know that, people still try to fool us. We actively go out, we're trying to identify those people. If you know who they are, send us an email, let us know, because they are effectively stealing your money. We have a committee that looks into it. We put a committee subcommittee rather, together to look and to try and identify who's doing this. We're trying to go after people, we're trying to identify them, saying you can't do this. And we're exploring options, whether once we catch somebody, if we've seen they've done it for a long period, what our opportunity to go back and recoup some of that money is from them. This is an active process we're doing. Again, if you know them, let us know, because they're taking your money from your children that could be better spent.
Go ahead.
The first one is, how will we know, when a follow-up meeting is scheduled, to be able to provide feedback based on the feedback? Do we look on Facebook, maybe email?
Full advertise.
I apologize to people on Zoom. I'm gonna check with the three boards that are sitting here and the superintendent and just say, do you feel the need for a follow-up? Well, let me ask you, show of hands, no shouting, please. Excuse me, sir, can I finish the question? Okay, for everybody else, do you feel it's necessary to have a follow-up meeting similar to this? Please raise your hand. Okay. Ed, can you count them? No, never mind. All right, fine. I'm gonna check. You know, you're gonna be sorry you give me the mic. You know, seriously, I will check with the three boards and the superintendent, and we will, since there's big interest, we will try to schedule something, and we would put it on our Facebook, we would put it on, town website, etc. Yes, ma'am. Okay, we can do that.
Okay, so because I'm a pragmatic, practical person, we have everybody here right now. So why don't we decide if we want to get together for another meeting while we're all in the room?
Superintendent. Wait a minute, no, before we go that route, Ed, would you be interested in moderating again? You'd have to think about it. Again,
Give me a minute, and seriously, the question in the back about adding people to Zoom, yeah, we would do that. I'm not gonna make a decision tonight, seriously, because I don't think it's fair to the people that are sitting here. Why not? Because, these folks don't have calendars, they don't know what their life is in the next couple of weeks. We are friends. You can get the mic back. We will make a decision. Yeah, sure. She's asking for other people. She does this all the time. She gets up there with 18 questions.
Can I ask a question? What happens if either the general government or the school overspend their budget for unforeseen circumstances such as oil, fuel, a child who requires special education services? And we are currently at the max for Proposition 46. I honestly, and I know I should know this, but I cannot remember what happens if we go to the red.
We just kind of had a situation like this, so, we just had our audit review. So technically, it's a violation of a statute. Specifically, if it's a school violation, it's 10-222, which specifically states that they cannot spend more than what was appropriated. If that happens, they have to do a plan of action that they submit to the state. But technically, legality wise, or even speaking with our auditors, we have to pay it. It will just have to come from our general fund, and we will still have to pay it, which will just reduce our fund balance. I don't recommend it. I say we have to try harder to stay within our budget, but again, if we violate a statute and it's found through our audit, that's normally when it's found, they will make recommendations of what we need to do to stay within that budget. To my knowledge, there is no civil action or anything like that, but we do have to still pay the bill.
Hi, my name is Linda Fox. I have several different, things that I do. Obviously, I'm a resident of the town of Woodstock. My husband and I have, and our family have been living here, coming up on 10 years now. And I also substitute teach, only at the elementary school, because I'm not brave enough to substitute teach at the middle school. I have two children who are students, and I can tell you that when they started school, my daughter was in kindergarten, my son was in preschool, and next year, they will be going to the academy. I started subbing probably about, I don't know, maybe 4 years after my kids started school. I continue to sub to this day. I can tell you that my son's first class had about 15 students there. And when I go into the classes today and I see 21, 22, 23 students in classes with no para, if there's no special ed kids in that class, and if there are, the para is dedicated to that student and to those needs. I have a daughter with special needs, and I have a son who is in regular ed. And if he is having trouble, you know, he's at the mercy of, you know, is there 10 other kids in the class who are having as much trouble, and does that teacher have the emotional and physical energy left to help my student? And that is the one thing that I really wanted to express here. First of all, the EMTs, the fire, all of you guys, I appreciate you. My son has some medical things. If I ever have to call, I don't want to be that parent who has to sit for a half hour waiting for somebody to come and help my son. He's 13 with medical issues. So I thank you guys. And we're talking about, you know, 20,000 here, 30, we're talking about $400 tires. How will we, you know, we're having to really nitpick at these things in a budget. We live in Woodstock, I pay taxes. I'm another one of those residents who absolutely would pay more taxes so that our schools, so that our services are not having to be less worse. And I love that, because that's what we're doing. We're talking about a situation where we want to have all these great programs. We're not even at that place yet. We're at, let's not get worse. You know, we're not talking about, you know, well, the school wants to add all of these really amazing things. We're talking about, we don't want to lose another teacher. We don't want to lose another 4th grade teacher and go from 22 kids to 30 and 40 kids. And that is a reality. And when we came to this area, one of the reasons we moved to Woodstock was because of the school. And I am seeing teachers who are burning out. They are burning out because they have too many kids and not enough help. So I totally agree, you know, whatever it is, whether we need to amend or change or fix, whatever it is, we need to do it. We need to be able to move from that mindset of we are trying to be less worse to we are trying to get back to what people used to admire this town for, which was our school and our service.
Thank you.
Asked me about a follow-up meeting. I've consulted with Board of Finance, Board of Ed, Superintendent, and 2 selectmen that are here. We will have a follow-up. We will not make that decision tonight because many of these folks have other meetings that they go to because, we're thankful enough to have them serve on the various boards, but they have subcommittees, they have other committees. So we're gonna try to work out a date that's convenient for all of these folks to do a follow-up. So I just want to let you know.
Okay. Not sure the case with it, how much is the academy taking up? It seems a lot of the cuts are major cuts that mean more to the town, and one lot can't afford to lose, and I only see them building up. So just curious as to if some of that could be better allocated to the lower schools or the EMS or more serious stuff.
Not only in the chair, I'm also the deputy town rep for the Woodstock Academy. And, I sit on the board of, or the finance committee of that, school trustees and also the executive committee. And there's very intense meetings going through on the business side of everything that does go on the academy side. And, and we as a board have looked at other high schools as well. So, the finger pointing that might go on because of the way Prop 46 works, the tuition that the academy charges us does then come out of our K-8 budget. But then the question comes in, well, how could we, control the academy financial portion of that? And you can to a degree. I mean, there's discussions that go on. They listen to the town. They do. I've sat there and they've actually made tuition pass through and not have any increases one year because of the town situation. And that representation, when they do listen to that, plays an important factor in terms of their budget. The problem is that just like everything else, everything is going up. And they're looking at some of the cuts that they might have to make if they only go with a 1% increase or a 4% increase, which maybe maintains program. Those discussions are all are happening right now. And they're passing those numbers over to us so we can work on our budget at the same time. That work is being done, but the reality is everybody's budget is going up, if they can. And these discussions that we're having tonight is for us to try to look outside the box and see if maybe we can recategorize some things, like we were talking about, what are some of the ideas that we could have? And maybe since our statutory obligation on high school, which we don't have, that we, deal with in the academy side, actually ends up being something that gets amended under Prop 46. That's just one solution. There's ideas that are constantly flowing, but those are the things maybe at our next meeting we can address so that as I'm taken for what we talked about tonight and you digest a little bit and understand we as a town as to what our statutory obligations are, you can kind of understand when we say that we can maybe amend Prop 46 for certain state statutes or state mandates, I should say. And that might help with some of the solutions. So just something to keep in mind for the next meeting. But we have to pay what they charge us, and those conversations are going on all the time.
I have a question from James Blond. Why can't fire and EMS be combined in one location centrally? It seems as though that would reduce costs in apparatus and personnel.
There's a lot of factors that go into that. One of the biggest, or there's a few, one is, Woodstock is like the second largest geographical state. I'll just use Moneybrook as an example, just that station alone. If I'm sitting in a truck running, and there's a call at the end of Lebanon, zero to Brick Hill, that's a 9-minute run. That's our own area. The other thing is water supply. We don't have hydro. So, that's a fact. Way back, in the thirties, when villages started, each one in the forties, each village created these fire departments. And that has worked out well, then go to today. The three chiefs in town, do meet. They are working, on apparatus, what we need in town, so we don't do a lot of duplication. We're working on training together. And still keeping that independence now. Whether that will change someday, I don't know. I think I'm probably old enough where I won't see that. But those are the factors. The biggest one is geography. Trying to have one department in this town to be able to serve it all. And you gotta remember, and if you look at a community, response plan, the highest area that has residential occupancy is south, especially the schools. So you really need to have a department that has aerial use, truck, EMS. This is the high population area. Doesn't include all the other area, but you've got to have areas to have apparatus and also people to respond. So that's one of the reasons why it was started. It's going that way now, but with all three fire departments talking with one another and working with another for the future, we're on the right track. I don't know if that answers the question. Well, did that answer the question?
As far as the EMS goes, we went to the town during the height of COVID, and, the selectmen asked what they can do to help us. We asked if we get Lucas devices, which is, as Dick said, for thumper. And what it now does is it allows our EMT and EMS services personnel to perform CPR in the most efficient way. Each ambulance has one, and each department has a backup. So if Money Brook or Bungie gets called first for cardiac arrest, they can put the Lucas device on right away and start it. That may not mean a lot to a lot of people, but as an old-time EMT, imagine doing CPR in the back of the ambulance for 35 minutes to get to the hospital. It's not very effective. All right. So the town does listen to what our needs are, and they help where they can, when they can. Also, Lucas device now, because of COVID and other things, has now alleviated the issue of an EMT or an EMR in the back of the ambulance closing to somewhere. Now they're back to further away, and they can help the paramedic in the back, alleviate and help them do what they do. So the town does listen. There's limited funds out there. Those devices, totally, I think was $70,000. Those are, there's added cost to those. There's maintenance fees, which we absorb through the extra $190,000. I think it's $1,200. It's $1,200 per unit. They have to be calculated and, batteries and whatnot. But, if you give your personnel the best tools to work with, then, one, they're happy to come to work. And two, it helps the townspeople, those that we're trying to save in a timely manner. So.
They're trying to think of ways that we can interact. Maybe the trick to the trick is to set up a series of Zoom meetings by different people addressing particular strategies, so that anybody who's interested in learning what strategies can be pursued and what are the limits of a particular approach, whether it's overturning Prop 46, amending it, or some other solution, if we can set up a schedule of meetings on Zoom rather than getting everybody here, and those who are interested in pursuing that particular strategy can come and get informed about what's going on and how do we do it and what happens. And, that's to me, that's the way ideas get built with information. And none of us have that information. So that's just a quick suggestion. Rather than a general meeting that does this again without answers. Thank you, Myron. Anybody else?
Carol Ekholm wants to know if the Woodstock Academy pays any taxes on the houses that are on their property.
Like, house.
The South Campus became dormitory. A lot of those buildings and houses that they had scattered around and been sold.
Okay, thank you. Matthew Wester would like to know if the town has explored creating a special taxing district under Connecticut statute to add to room and board taxes for B&Bs and other guest houses in town. He says it could create some additional revenue to offset expenses for emergency services. Okay, so that is an assessor question, and Matthew, we will put that on the frequently asked questions document that we will be drafting. The next question is from Aaron. Has anyone discussed the issue of inflation? Inflation in 2022 was over 6% year over year on average, but was much higher for many categories. If the town budget doesn't increase by at least 6%, the spending power of the town decreases. The proposed budget increase is a little over 2%, which means that the spending power of the 2023 budget is 4% less than 2022 due to just inflation. How can the town keep up with all expenses and spending when the budget increases don't even keep up with inflation?
You're right.
Aaron, the question is, we can. The answer to your question is we can.
All right, just for informational purposes. In the last 10 years, the government accounting office says that the cumulative increase in inflation was 29.27%. In that same period of time, our budget has increased by 21.17%. So basically, that suggestion that was made is pretty much on target, is what we need right now just to keep our heads above water. 6%. Realistically. Because we have only averaged about 2.1% every year for the last 10 years, when it should have been 2.36% at a minimum.
This is the last question that I have currently. This is from Greg Klein. He has a suggestion for the transfer station. I have been a transfer station user for 4 years. Every single week, I see vehicles with out-of-state license plates, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Florida, Maryland, and others using the transfer station. This means the drivers likely own a residence and pay tax on that. But if a vehicle is registered out of state, that tells me the town is not receiving a cent of motor vehicle property tax on these vehicles, and yet they are using an asset of the town that we pay for. We are losing revenue. The selectmen could change this without a referendum. 2023 stickers go into effect at the end of January. Get the constables up there as soon as possible and start checking not only current stickers, but registrations. Registration state permits are for vehicles registered in Woodstock. Let's start collecting motor vehicle property tax on all vehicles using the transfer station.
There's a bunch of issues here. Many private companies have leased vehicles for their employers, for their employees. The employees live in town, but it's a leased vehicle from XYZ Corporation. Sometimes they're rental, and you rent a car, you could end up with a license plate in Colorado, even though you rented it in Worcester. So, I mean, there's all of these things. If there's a permit on the vehicle, no matter where the plate is, there's a permit that was paid for by somebody that owns property in town, they live here year round, they're a summer resident, whatever. As long as there's a permit on the vehicle, we are getting that money from the resident, if you will.
Couple quick things I'd like to add. People in this room might not realize that Prop 46 is called Prop 46 because the mill rate was 46 in 1979. In 1979, not one penny came out of the town coffers to go to the fire department. They made all their own money flipping burgers and having chicken barbecue. I don't think it's fair, if it wasn't fair, to ask the people that are saving their lives and our property to have to make their own money. It's time we pony up and take care of people, that take care of us. The one thing that people really aren't talking about here tonight is the fact that last year, the Board of Finance put forward the max prop allowable. It was voted down. If you people want to change, modify, get rid of Prop 46, the work is out of this room. The people that are in this room are the people who care. The people in here that are here on Zoom are, they're concerned, they care, they've got opinions, and they're getting involved. We need to find the support, or whoever's gonna move forward with this, needs to find support of a larger group. If we shot down last year's budget, dropped it by 50,000, which is really a drop in the bucket compared to total revenue.
I just want to say one last thing for tonight, as far as our budget. A lot of people are new in town, they may not understand the budget process, or they may not know some of the history over the last several years. I'm always available, it's my name, Karen Fitzpatrick at woodstockct.gov. Please email me if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer those. But the one thing that I just want to leave here tonight is for people to know that our Board of Finance for 3 consecutive years did not raise your mill rate, and no one's taxes increased, and we took from our general fund to offset so we could still provide the services that everybody was used to getting. We can't do it anymore. We have taken about 5% of our general fund balance and depleted it, and we're slowly trying to make it back. $3.5 million that we have in fund balance lasts not even 2 months of expenditures based on our budget. So constantly dipping in to try to offset taxes is not the answer. We thought we were doing the right thing during the pandemic. We knew people were struggling, losing their jobs, but it's time that we face reality. And, you know, we have to support this budget. We can't keep dipping in. It's like dipping into your savings. You keep dipping, and eventually you have nothing left. We are trying to prevent that. That's our security. It's recommended by the audit and the state that we try to have between 15 and 20% of a fund balance. Fiscal year 22 ended in 13.08. Prior to that was only 11%. So when you figure out if you have a $25 million budget and you only have 3.5 million in your savings, and something happens, that's only going to get us about 1.5 months worth of bills, and then we're on our own. So there is no more dipping. There is no more The only other way to go is borrow, and every time we borrow, it costs more in taxes because it increases our debt. So at some point, if people could just try to work together and let us know before this budget season, I mean, if you want to send in information or make suggestions, please know that we are trying to do our best. You know, we're a group of people, some of us are volunteers, some of us are employees. We sit here and we discuss this every single day that we go into the office. We're trying to be somewhat conservative, thinking about the people who don't want an increase in taxes, but then we're trying to figure out ways to get more money for the people who do. So unless we hear from you letting us know what you want from this town, we're gonna do the best we can, and right now I'm telling you, it's gonna be cuts. More cuts, more cuts. Because we have to pay for EMS, fire, roads, and those are the things that we're trying to keep going. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Ron? Ron Brayton from Woodstock, North Woodstock. I've been here 55 years, and I was here when the vote came up, and I voted across 46. However, anything can be changed. I think we should make some effort, first of all, to find out what the circumstances were to bring about Prop 46. What was going on? And there was a lot going on. It sounds like we need I hope, a modification. But the whole idea was, what are that we have families to live, especially for the ones that struggle. There's one thing that keeps coming up. And Mr. Lester pointed out a couple of them in that brochure we sent out, is that we've heard a lot tonight, that's mandates. We get people in Hartford who try to represent us, and they always take the coward's way out. They think this is a great idea. Let's pass the law. And oh, by the way, we'll make them pay for it. Because they don't want to vote for something to raise the state taxes, but they sure have to get stuff through and they're not to pay the tax. And we've heard that tonight about this going on a lot. We have a Board of Education. The State Board of Education is a plaintiff, not voted. Our Board of Education are voted in by us, because we know that, they know what we want, but their hands are bound as well, because they have to serve the mandate in the State Board of Education. And years ago, 40 years ago, I addressed some of these issues to the Board of Education. And I proposed 4 or 5 propositions to be issued at a town vote. I got all of them in but one. And one of them that did pass was that we wanted to have a representative on the State Board of Education from our area of Connecticut, Northeast. Do we have a representative from our area? On the State Board of Education, we do not. There's no representative from Northwest Connecticut on the State Board of Education. If you look at a map and find out where these guys are from and girls, they're from the populated areas between Stamford and Hartford. We're obligated to obey these people who were appointed. The people we elect don't have as much power. So I think we can't do anything about mandates now. Just bear in mind, those cowards, with this expression, in Hartford find it far easier to make us pay for their needs or wants. I want to say thank you very much. Yeah, I've learned a lot tonight from this book. And it's not as if we don't appreciate it, but we have our own problems. It's been through COVID. And a lot of stuff facing our way. That's all. Thank you.
No, but I think on a positive note, I think it might be
Thank you, everybody, for coming.